edit the start bit. Hello, welcome to the Absolute Football Podcast. It is one of our all about specials. It is the summer and we've got plenty to talk about because we've gone for all about Brighton today. We're going all about Brighton. Got a very wonderful guest who we'll be introducing very shortly. But it is summertime and somebody has some time on their hands to share with us. Is very happy to enjoy the sunshine and she's come along to join us today. Rebecca, how are things with you?
They're very good, thank you. Yeah, it's nice being off uni, off season, get to relax and just read books at the minute.
It's very nice, isn't it? Very nice. Just a chilled time. You know, we're not bothering with that FIFA Club World Cup stuff anyway. So we're having a nice break. Transfer windows. That's about as excitement as we get. So yeah, looking forward to this one tonight. It should be good. Should be good. And of course, our super special guest coming all the way from the Albion Obsessed Podcast. He did guest on the show. I think last season. I think we did have Joe on at one point. But this is Joe. Joe, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hello. Yeah, no, feeling good, ready to talk about the Albion. I always get a little bit nervous when I go on other podcasts, but then I think to myself, I talk crap every week on my podcast about my club, so it should be fine. So yeah, no, I'm all right.
Exactly. I think it'll be all right. It's just a bit like playing away from home, I think, when you go on others' podcasts. It's sort of in the first 5-10 minutes, you think, it's just another game of football. It's just in front of a different set of fans.
I'll silence the crowd and then I'll go a couple of goals up.
Exactly, a couple of goals in early, and you'll be fantastic. But of course, you are with us to talk everything about Brighton, who, as we cover on the Absolutely Premier League show, have been covering for a number of years now because they're extremely well established now in the Premier League and have had a fantastic few seasons at all. So, I guess we'll start in terms of where it will start. If you, how did you become a Brighton supporter?
It's deeply ingrained in my family, and if I became anything else, I think I would get exiled. It came a little bit later for me. I grew up away from Brighton, not too far away, but I grew up in Hastings with my mum after my parents divorced, and I wasn't close enough to catch the bug that early. And then when I was about 13, 14, I remember one weekend I was driving over to my dad's, and it was I wasn't driving. My dad was driving. I wasn't a 14-year-old driving. It was an FA Cup weekend, and I turned to my dad and said, "Who have we got this weekend, Dad?" And I remember the smile on his face when I used the term "we," because it was like, he's finally there. He's finally taking interest. So yeah, it stemmed from there, and that was our last season in League One. So really, for me, I've been quite blessed as a Brighton fan. I've only ever really known an upwards trajectory, and there's been a few stumbling blocks in between, but nothing as to what my dad and older fans would have experienced way back. So yeah, it's been a crazy journey, but for me, it was never a case of I'm supporting this football club because I want them to get to the Premier League. It was the same as everyone. It's my hometown, and it's all across my family. So it was always going to catch me eventually, and I'm glad it did.
It's always good when you've got those family ties as well as I think the location of where it's at. It's a kind of double win, and I suppose probably through your dad and everybody you heard about the history and the troubles and concerns of Brighton. So I suppose for people who aren't, say, maybe as aware of Brighton, you're able to sort of give them a bit of a heads up in where Brighton came from. Obviously, in the 90s, things looked in a very different place for the club.
Yeah, obviously doing my podcast, I've sort of spoken to a lot of fans from that time, and I've heard countless stories from my granddad, my dad, my uncle who was at the game where we had to score and level the game to stay in the Football League. We were literally 30 odd minutes away from not existing as a football club anymore, and it was one goal that saved the fortunes of this club. Hereford went out of business a few years later, and that very much could have been us. And the journey we've been on since then, fighting for a permanent home again. We had to ground share with Gillingham of all places, and fans were having to travel like 90 miles round trip for home games, which was just ridiculous. So when we came back to the Withdean, it wasn't ideal at all. We were fighting so hard to get the Amex. We had so many clubs sort of back us, and it was, from what I've heard back then, it was such a incredible experience to have football clubs back you and really support you. And I think that's true to now as well. I think when Bury have gone close or out of business, and other clubs have, Reading, for example, the football community just pull together. And I think it's just a beautiful story of what football means to communities and how much people will fight for a football club. And the fact that when you do fight for a club, who knows, in 30, 40 years, like us, we're fighting in the Premier League, we've been in Europe. We're now, as you say, an established Premier League club, which still baffles me to this day. We're going into our 9th Premier League season. I thought we would have one season and then go back down to the Championship and sort of float around there. But we've done incredibly well. It's all credit to Tony Bloom and all of the people that fought all the way back in 1995 to keep us alive. And that's where we are today. It's because of them. So, yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
It is amazing hearing the stories of Brighton and the journey that you've been on with the club. And people can catch that on the Albion Obsessed podcast. Where did this podcast begin? How did it come about for you?
Yeah, so it came off of the back of a little project that me and my friend Toby did over the Euros back in 2021. We just wanted to talk about football. We had like 2 listeners, which was probably my wife and his girlfriend, and they were forced to listen to it. And we came off the back of that Euros thinking we had such a good time. We want to talk more about football. We want to make our own podcast. Let's talk about the Premier League. And I said to him, I don't really want to do that. I don't care about anyone else other than Brighton or England. So that's where Albion Obsessed came from, is the fact that we were so obsessed with the Albion, we just had to talk about it. So our first season was the 21-22 season, the first season back after lockdown. So I think that helped us a lot because people had that excitement of coming back to the football. They were wanting to consume as much Brighton and Hove Albion content as they possibly could. And there were a few podcasts out there like Seagull Social, Albion Raw, who've been doing it a long time. But we felt that there was maybe space for a podcast that was for the fans. And we've had a lot of fans come on. We're a very open sort of door. We want people to come on and talk about their club. And I've met so many amazing people. We've got a team of 10 now that work on the Albion Obsessed podcast. We still invite fans to come on. We've had incredible guests such as club legend Peter Ward, Craig McHale-Smith. We had life president Dick Knight on the podcast as well. So it's been an amazing journey. I never thought it would be what it is today, and I'm not saying it's huge, but we've got over 2,000 subscribers across all platforms, and people catch me at games to talk about the Albion and say they listen to the podcast. It's just the nicest feeling in the world to know that you're contributing to the community of what fans want to consume, and I love doing it, and yeah, long may it continue.
It is really nice to hear the story and the development of your podcast. What has been one of your standout moments or one highlight that comes to you from doing it?
I think the podcast after we confirmed Europe for the first time, that was such an emotional time. We've got a couple of guys on the podcast that have seen the bad days. They've sat at the Withdean Stadium with no roof. They've got drenched watching us lose 7-1 to Walsall. And then for them to have that experience and that platform to say just how much it means to them that this football club have reached. I know it wasn't the Champions League, but for us, it felt like the pinnacle of club football. Seeing our name drawn out of a Europa League draw was just so surreal. And so to have all of that reaction and to capture that emotion and still have that to look back on, I think was really special. So, yeah, just after that Southampton game, we logged on. we went live, and then it was just a podcast full of tears, which was it was lovely. And someone made such an amazing sort of montage. One of our listeners, he sent it to me on Twitter, and he put over all the clips of us struggling in League One and struggling down the bottom of League Two, and put some really nice moving music behind it, and it got me again. So yeah. It's created some really lovely moments, and it's great to share it with a lot of friends.
There have been, as you've said, a lot of highs and lows with Brighton over the years, but now an established top half Premier League side. What are your ambitions for the coming up season, for the future of Brighton as well?
Yeah, it's hard to sort of look above what we've already done, really. Obviously, get into Europe. I think our ambition is to get back there and get back there consistently. Tony Bloom's a dreamer, so I wouldn't put it past him for him to be thinking we could win the Premier League one day. Look at Leicester; they won the Premier League in whenever it was, and there was a famous quote from one of our ex-managers, Gus Poyet. He said, "I think Brighton have reached their ceiling," and we have proven time and time again after that quote that there is no ceiling at this football club, and the sky is very much the limit. And I think the ultimate aim would be Champions League, and I think if we saw Brighton in the Champions League, I don't think anyone would ever see me ever again. I'll be dead in a ditch somewhere. As I said, the sky's the limit, and with Tony Bloom as the owner, I'm not going to question the ambitions of this football club. We could do whatever we want, really.
This is it. It's been an incredible few seasons. You say, I don't think anybody who's not a Brighton fan would question that there's the potential that they could in terms of what we've seen out of the club in recent years. Obviously, we're now in the summer sort of period. It won't be long till the fixture list comes out. What's the ones that you look forward to, and your rival games in particular? What's the first one that you're looking for in terms of that list?
Rival games I don't look forward to at all. I hate playing Crystal Palace. And now, obviously, they've won the FA Cup. Very good. I'm sure there'll be comments under here saying, "Oh, the ambition of Brighton. We've won the FA Cup. We're better than you." You're not. No, they probably are. It terrifies me every time. We had some awful games against them last season. We went to their place. They went down to 9 men. We still couldn't beat them. So Oliver Glasner's got them in a very good place. So it's a scary prospect. The ones I look forward to, I love watching Brighton play Chelsea at the Amex. I think the atmosphere there, with the history of Graham Potter and him taking all of his staff, and they seem to be wanting every single last piece of Brighton and Hove Albion. So there's a little bit of wanting to prove them wrong, and wanting to prove that the one thing they can't buy is Tony Bloom and his his data and his business, Star Lizard, who provide the club with the data to get the hidden gems that we get. And it's just nice getting one over on them when they think they can throw £1 billion, whatever they want to do, and we still come out on top 9 times out of 10, especially in the recent years. But other than that, I think you always look forward to playing the newly promoted teams. It's been a little bit boring over the last few seasons. You've had sort of yo-yo clubs bouncing around. Obviously, Luton was great to watch. I'm really excited to see Sunderland in the Premier League again. So, I think it's those games I look forward to the most.
Yeah, some really good ones, and obviously that rivalry with Palace. How are you feeling at the minute? Obviously, there's some rumours circling around. It's all about is the European place under threat, and I presume if so, then you're quite interested because it may well be coming your way.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's like if that happens, that would be great, but it still doesn't take away their FA Cup title. Obviously, which was very luckily given to them after Dean Henderson handballed it outside of the area. I'm not bitter, don't worry. I think looking at that is like there's a slight chance. I don't think anything's going to happen, but one of the Irish clubs just got kicked out because of an ownership issue. So if that's happened to them, I know it's a slightly different situation, but UEFA would look like mugs if they don't do anything about the Crystal Palace situation. So yeah, it's a wait and see situation, but I think UEFA will be pressured into keeping Palace in there.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. See how that one develops. Will be good. But of course, we ask you what we always do on All Abouts is we ask to name your best 11, your favourite 11 from Brighton over sort of recent years. And I suppose the only place to start is what formation are you going with? Are you a traditional man in terms of your formation, or have we got inverted fullbacks and all sort of things going on?
So no, I'm not quite as experimental as Graham Potter was a few years ago. I've gone for a standard 4-3-3. So and it's so hard because there's so many players that I absolutely adore. So I've narrowed it down to Premier League era, because if I went back to the Championship, I would have like a subs bench of 50 people, because those Championship teams for me will always be the ones of my heart. So in goal, I've gone for Matty Ryan. Not so much for his ability, just for how much of a lovely bloke he was. I was honoured to present him with a Player of the Season award on his debut season, which was our debut Premier League season. And he was just the nicest guy. He gave me a signed shirt, and it's very nicely sat in my wardrobe and doesn't come out. So for that reason, Matty Ryan. Right back, I've gone for Joel Veltman. I don't know if you guys have watched him this season, particularly because his can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, we're all good for a little bit of
his
swearing.
shithousery is top level. When he got Declan Rice sent off, and he does these little things. He's had battles with Wilfried Zaha. He's come off the pitch with 2 black eyes. Like, he is an absolute warrior. And he's that sort of player that you think you would be if you got to play for your club. You would fight for every ball. You would, get the ball in the face if it was going in on the line. And he does exactly that. And off the pitch, he's just an advocate for what footballers should be. He gives so much to the community. He gives so much back to fans. Again, this is just basically a legend, a lovely guy, first 11, basically. For my centre-back pairing, I've gone for our current pairing, which are Lewis Dunk and Jan-Paul Van Hecke. I think they have easily topped the centre-back pairing of Lewis Dunk and Shane Duffy. Van Hecke's become such a incredible player for us, and is the player that people sort of don't look at, and I'm more scared of losing him than I am scared of losing Matoma, because I think if you take away that pivotal piece of the spine and have to replace him with someone that's clearly not as good, is gonna hurt you more than if you lost Matoma. We've got 50 wingers out on loan, so the chances are we will be able to replace him. And Lewis Dunk, I mean, I don't know if I've got to speak about him, but club captain, been with us since he was a boy, and is just an absolute legend for us. So if I didn't put him in, I think a lot of Brighton fans watching this would absolutely crucify me. So Lewis Dunk is in. And at left back, I've gone for a really weird one, but I've gone for Bernardo. And I don't know if you guys would be familiar with him, but he was with us for a couple of years, maybe from 2019 to 2021. Again, because he's just such a lovely bloke. Had the chance to meet him. It was at a fans event, and they were doing like an open training session. My mum was meant to come with me, but she was really ill. And I said as much to Bernardo, and he took my phone off me. He recorded a 2-minute long video speaking to my mum, saying that he was so gutted that she couldn't be here. And it was just such a lovely thing to do. So, Bernardo goes in there ahead of... I was thinking about Purvis Estupiñán. He's been brilliant for us. Not so much this season. But yeah, that's my shout for that. Midfield, gosh, this was really difficult. We've had a lot of good midfielders. Bissouma being one was excellent for us, and then we're thinking we can't upgrade on him. and then we get Caicedo, and then he goes, and then we're thinking we surely can't upgrade on him, and then we get who I've put in my 11, Carlos Baleba. This season, he has been a standout from like the rest, and the way he commands a midfield, the power he plays with. He can shoot, he can tackle, he can run back, he can play centre back, he can play left back. Put him anywhere and he will put in a shift. So, yeah, Carlos Baleba, again, probably the player that people are thinking that will be going for over £100 million from Brighton. But, of course, we want to keep him. And weirdly, there's not been that many rumours of him going, which, touch wood, doesn't happen. So I've always found that quite strange. I hope it stays that way. Next is what I never thought we would see at Brighton, a World Cup winner, Alexis McAllister. Went for £35 million with I think a £20 million add-ons, which I think has been met now. Liverpool have won the league. But still, £55 million for Alexis McAllister is an absolute steal. In my opinion, at the moment, one of the best midfielders in the world. He was at our football club and he was incredible for us. He put Brighton on such a pedestal that we had a World Cup winner. And I remember Lionel Messi commenting on a Brighton Instagram post, and I was like, oh my goodness me. Agent McAllister, please work your magic and get Leo to the club. Didn't work out. And next for me is probably my all-time favorite player is Pascal Gross. I had a very, very difficult summer last year when he announced that he was leaving the club. It's been so weird without him because it's all we've ever known in the Premier League is Pascal Gross in the starting 11. He became our top Premier League goal scorer, was passed this season by Danny Welbeck. But the goal involvements, just the moments we've had with Pascal Gross, he is just words fail me with Pascal Gross. He is, the greatest man we would ever have at this club, and I don't think we would ever have someone as good as him ever again. And I think he was maybe underrated by a lot of people. I genuinely believed a couple of years ago that he was good enough to walk into any side in world football and improve them. I think the thing that kept him at us for longer was his pace. He wasn't the fastest at all, but he always seemed to be everywhere you needed him to be. For that reason, Pascal goes in there. And my front three, I've gone for Anthony Knockaert, who got us to the Premier League, was excellent for us in the Championship, and formed such a great partnership with Glenn Murray. They scored, I think, between 30 to 40 goals between them in that season. Didn't quite carry on into the Premier League, but he was just one of those guys that whenever he got the ball, you was off your seat and expecting something to happen. He scored an absolute cracking goal against Crystal Palace in his last season with us. So he will always be remembered for that. Glenn Murray, I think, goes in there ahead of Danny Welbeck. I did have a little bit of a battle with myself earlier on today. But I think Glenn Murray, for getting us to the Premier League and then being such an important reason as to why we stayed in the Premier League, would have to go in there just over Danny Welbeck, even though, as I say, Danny Welbeck became our all-time Premier League goal scorer this season. And on the left wing, again, if I didn't put this guy in, Brighton fans would crucify me. Kaoru Mitoma. I think one of the most iconic players we've ever had. I remember watching him against Liverpool a couple of weeks ago at the Amex, and obviously there's a lot of rumbles over him leaving for Champions League football. So I was watching him with a little bit of a pang of sadness in me, thinking that this could be the last time I see him play at the Amex. And in terms of ability and profitability in terms of marketing for the football club and everything like that, the tourism it brings into Brighton. We've got Japanese fans galore at the Amex, which is just incredible to see us again on that international stage. People talking about Brighton and Hove Albion in Japan, which never would have happened all the way back in League One. So yeah, for me, Karim Matoma goes in there. He's produced some incredibly magical moments, and again, another player that you can't replace what he gives. You can get a left winger that's good and fast and scores goals, but Mitoma does things with that ball that you would just dream of doing on a five-a-side pitch. So, Mitoma for me.
A very, very good team. So I won't step on Rebecca's toes. So I know she's going to talk about more about Mitoma later, but we definitely are big fans on the pod, and it seems like everybody, I think, is fans of Mitoma across the piece. But a very good team, very good mix of players in there. As you said, a lot of players that are still at the top of the game. Now, talking particularly about McAllister that you've got there, and I've no doubt that Belieber's going to go on to have, he's already having an incredible career, and look at the age of the guy. So it's going to be fantastic. Who's going to manage them? Who of your managers would you put in?
Oh gosh, it's difficult. Graham Potter snaked her, so it won't be him. De Zerbi has made some questionable comments about a very questionable guy at Marseille. So he's gone down in my estimations, but he got us European football. Fabien Herzeler has had such an incredible introduction to Premier League football. He's had to learn a lot of harsh lessons very, very quickly. And he's learnt them well. Towards the end of the season, we were managing games brilliantly well. Whereas, we lost a 2-goal lead against Wolves. We lost a 2-goal lead against Leicester earlier in the season. And had we have kept those leads, we would have been in the Champions League. So I think there's a little bit of a annoyance there, is the fact that we can't seem to get over the line against the sort of relegation fighters. We drew to Southampton at home, drew to Ipswich at home. So I think that's been the sticking point. So I'm not sure I can pick any of those three, which is weird. So I'm going to go for Chris Hughton again for legendary status, because he got us out of the Championship. He took over from Sami Hyypiä at a time where we were 20th in the Championship. He stabilised us there, just stayed up. Next year, we were third in the Championship. Didn't quite get there. Lost on in the playoffs. I absolutely hate the playoffs, by the way. I get that they're incredibly romanticized by football fans, but as a Brighton fan, I've not had good experiences there. So I definitely watched those from afar. And then we went up automatically the next season. So that was very lucky and saved a lot of stress. So yeah, Chris Hughton for me would be the manager. Not sure he would get as much out of the players as a Fabien Herzeler or Roberto De Zerbi, but yeah, he gets in there for. I think he's actually got freedom of the city in Brighton as well, so I think he's probably picked himself.
In recent years, Brighton has become very well known and very famous for their recruitment. I mean, the players that you've mentioned within your dream starting 11, your likes of McAllister, you've got Matoma, like we'll get on to, and the recruitment has just been incredible. What's the key to this, do you think?
Tony Bloom. He has some crazy algorithm that just seems to find these hidden gems in every corner of the earth. And so much so that I think a lot of clubs have sort of tried to replicate it and tried to follow where Brighton are looking. And the South American market has now become so oversaturated that we've moved away from it. And now we're looking in other places, and maybe people are looking at our business last season and at the start of this season and thinking, well, Brighton are really changing their model. But I don't think we are. I think we're going off of the fact that we've done so well in terms of PSR status that we can make these moves and we can spend so much money, and we can start looking in different ponds. And it's all because we have found those hidden gems in South America or wherever. And obviously Caicedo's gone for £150 million, broke the record for transfer fee. And if you told me a player would leave Brighton and break a transfer record fee of over £100 million, I would have been laughing until Christmas of 2030. So it's been incredible to see the fact that we can lose somebody and then replace them well. And even Carlos Baleba, I think if we lost him, we've got a guy out on loan called Malik Yalkouye, who is dubbed to be the next guy to come into our midfield and shock the footballing world yet again. So I think there's a lot of names on the books at Brighton that in the next 3 seasons, people will start to be talking about on your shows, on other Premier League shows, as how have Brighton done it again? We just seem to keep doing it, and people are saying it's not sustainable. You're going to screw up eventually. We've had screw-ups. We've had players that have come in, not been as effective as we'd hoped, and then moved them on, but somehow still for profit. So Tony Bloom has got such an incredible setup. He's got a great CEO alongside him in Paul Barber, who seems to know the footballing world inside out. When we got to the Premier League, this is a stat that shocked me. We only had 3 scouts worldwide. Now we've got over 250. So we've got a lot of people looking in every single corner of the world, and that's how Brighton are so successful. It can't be replicated because people don't have the algorithm that Tony Bloom produces via Star Lizard. So again, if you want to buy the best piece of Brighton, you can't do it. And I think he's got us in such a strong position in that way. So that's why I say the sky's the limit for us, because we don't know what Tony Bloom is capable of. He told us that he wanted to become an established Premier League side. He did that. He told us he wanted us to become a team that finish in the top 10 in the Premier League regularly. We seem to be doing that now. What comes next? Whatever Tony Bloom says, I would probably bet my house on it that it would happen. That's how trustworthy Brighton fans are with our ownership structure. I think there was a poll the other day that I saw, how happy are you with your owners? And Brighton were top, 99.9% of our fans. Who were that 0.1%, by the way? I want to find them and give them an absolute talking to. Probably someone that's not happy that they don't do vegan milk on the concourses. But yeah, it's a nice life supporting a club where you've got an owner who is a fan, who wants the very best for your club. People are saying he's a poker player. He's going to gamble your club into the ground one day. He won't do that. The Bloom family have been in and around Brighton for 70 years. So he will not let this football club perish.
It is always exciting watching Brighton's transfers over the transfer window because, as you said, you just never know who you're going to get. But, of course, in the transfer window, it has seen you having to sell, as you mentioned, quite a few of your star players, Caicedo, McAllister being 2 of the names, which just elevates the importance of your recruitment, which it is impressive to see. But how have you coped since their departures, would you say? And do you feel as though there is still a bit more to do?
I think I don't think we've quite replaced the quality of Alexis McAllister. As I say, I think, in my opinion, he's one of the best midfielders in the world, and obviously won the World Cup and was so instrumental in that Argentinian side, and has gone on to win the Premier League with Liverpool. And I have no doubts that he's going to win more trophies with them. I think he was even linked with Real Madrid, which, is just a credit to the player he is. But I think we've replaced him in different ways. Obviously, we've had João Pedro come through, who was instrumental in our Europa League season. Now he's being spoken about for a move of £60 million. He didn't have the best end to the season. He actually punched Jan-Paul Van Hecker in training and was exiled from the side. So to be honest, if he's that kind of character, I don't really want him at the club. But then we've got Jorginho to come in. We've got Brian Gruder, who had such an excellent end to the season. Diego Gomez, who's come in from the MLS. So yeah, we're in such a good way, and there's so many exciting things coming through at Brighton. And we just signed a Greek guy for £34 million, 18 years old. I never thought we would spend £34 million on an 18-year-old, but he must be good. So yeah, I think a lot of people, as you say, are waiting for Brighton to screw up and not replace someone as well as they can and then struggle the next season. But so far, I've not seen any proof in that. And we always seem to have players that very quickly improve and make our side even better. And as I say, we were maybe 2 wins away from getting Champions League football. So this season's Premier League was so weird. It was so open right till the final day. And who's to say that won't happen next season as well? So it's all up for grabs. There's a lot of teams playing in Europe. So I think next season will be our time to really make the most of that and hopefully achieve that again.
It's really interesting watching Brighton, say from afar, with all these players that come through. I think at the end of the season we were going, where's this Gomez guy come from? I'm sure, as you said, there'll be more that sort of come next season, and the signing of Charalampos, is it the Greek? I think I was looking at in the other day. If you try and look at the base stats in terms of if he hasn't played that much at first team level, kind of Olympiacos, and that I suppose shows the strength of your recruitment, doesn't it, under the surface? But of course, the sort of the big addition you also have was Fabien Herzeler coming in, who again to sort of the basic English football fan wouldn't have known sort of where he is, where he's come from. How have you got on with Herzeler, and how quick has he sort of got to the helm and really made Brighton side his own?
I've had a real love-hate relationship with Fabien this season. There's been some moments where I've thought, goodness me, we're world beaters. Brighton have done it, even with their manager. They brought in a young gem who has replaced Roberto De Zerbi and made it his own. But then there's been moments where I think his age and maybe inexperience has shown. 7-0 loss to Nottingham Forest, losing to 9-man Crystal Palace. Losing those leads that would have been so important at the end of the season. But again, I think I always look for the reaction of your manager and how he adapts in really difficult circumstances. And I think there's been enough proof this season to tell me that he is a more than capable Premier League coach. And he is the man to take this football club forward. I don't know what switched really for Brighton fans, but we've all seemed to warm to him quite a lot towards the end of the season. He had some really good runs of like 5-6 wins through February to March. We went on a little bit of a dip, but then the end of the season was incredible. We ended the season with 5 games unbeaten, 4 wins and 1 draw. So I think we're quite excited going into next season, and if we get the additions that Fabien wants, he said he wants more physicality, and the profile of the players that we're linked to seem to be that. And weirdly, it's probably the first time the football club have gone, our coach needs this rather than our football club needs this in terms of thinking profitability. So it's quite exciting that the club have spotted that in Fabien and think he is the man to back. We didn't back De Zerbi in the way De Zerbi wanted. That's why it ended sourly, and he moved on in the end. But we seem to want to back Fabien. So I think next season could be a really exciting one for us if we get all of these transfer targets over the line.
And do you feel with Herzeler, is it easy to spot the difference of how Herzeler's playing versus the other, or do you see it's more of an evolution of what you were doing before?
Yeah, a lot of our fans have said, oh, what's Herzeler doing? There's no tactics, there's no this, there's no that. A lot of our moments of brilliance this season have come from players taking a punt or individual brilliance, which slightly annoys me because when you look at some of our goals, and of course we've scored a lot from long range this season, but if you look at the space that's sort of created by the tactics that Fabien Herzeler employs of emptying the midfield and dragging defenders and allowing us to take the shot from long range, it's not as obvious to spot, and I think that's why fans maybe are a little bit confused as to what Fabien Herzeler is trying to do. De Zerbi was very, very easy to spot. Play out from the back, bait the press, go forwards, repeat. So, but I think that hindered us in De Zerbi's last season. He wasn't someone that would adapt. And we ended the season on sort of under 50 points and below Crystal Palace, which really angered us, in 11th. And Fabian's improved that. He ended this season on 61 points, which is only a point away from the tally that got us European football a couple of seasons prior. So, there's so much proof to see that Fabien Herzeler is, as I say, a capable coach that can adapt in difficult moments. We had a win this season against Newcastle where we went to their place. We stank the place out completely, but we won the game 1-0. And that was through dogged defending and, a fighting spirit. And we haven't really seen that since Chris Hughton, someone that would shut up shop, go on the counter, score one goal, and then shut up shop again. So it was very weird this season to see loads of different styles of play. But again, I think that's very promising as a coach that is moving away from maybe the Pep Guardiola, we're going to play one way and that is the only way. And I think football's maybe making a little bit of a shift at the moment where teams and managers and players have to be adaptable in certain situations. So I think that's why I'm quite sort of convinced that Herzeler will do well for us in the next few years.
The Amex Stadium can be quite a difficult ground for some teams to go to and perform against such a very strong Brighton side. What's the match day experience like for you and the fans?
Yeah, you say that, but not so much for the teams that have just been promoted. They seem to come to our place and get something every single time. But yeah, we do sometimes make it a little bit of a fortress. Not so much this season. We've got so many draws this year, which was slightly annoying. But in terms of the general match day experience, it's such a lovely stadium. The owners have created the stadium for fan comfort, which maybe shocks a lot of people. We could have made that stadium sort of 50,000 capacity, but it's 33 now, I think. And every seat is padded. Every seat has extra legroom. So it's quite a nice modern stadium. It's a far cry from what we used to have, as I say, the Withdean Stadium, which was a running track and had temporary stands. And those temporary stands were there for 10 years, so they weren't that temporary. So yeah, it's nice to go there and know that Brighton have got a permanent home. And every time I drive past it is such a incredible thing to see. I watched it go up. I watched it on the live cam that they had there, waiting for that moment that they opened those doors, and it was such an incredible experience to have that with my dad, and he's seen us at the very depths, and his face when he saw a 30,000 seater stadium, well, it was 22,000 at the time that it opened, was so lovely to see. And there's such an incredible community feel around the football club, and there's so many different generations now. Obviously, now we're in the Premier League. I think that's a lot easier for the club to grow, for the club to appeal to, the younger generation. You're in the Premier League, you're playing against the best. So I think 10 years ago, if you walked around in Brighton, you would see Arsenal shirts, Chelsea shirts, United shirts on kids. And now you see Brighton shirts. And I think that's just again a massive credit to the club and the community for pushing that out again. I think Brighton and Hove Albion used to be probably 20 years ago an embarrassment to the city, and now we are the pride of the city. You cannot go 10 feet in Brighton now and not see our crest. It's everywhere. The station's blue and white. So yeah, it's lovely. And slightly annoying that the council have gone, oh, Brighton are doing well. They're bringing in God knows how many millions worth of profit to our city. Now we're going to back them. They didn't quite back us when we needed to find a home, so that was annoying. But it's nice now, and yeah, the community aspect is the best part. I know pretty much everyone within 10 seats around me, and it's so nice when you score and you've got that sort of relationship and you're all bundling each other and hugging, and that's what creates the amazing scenes that people see when we do score those incredible moments at the Amex. So yeah, it's a lovely place.
What has been a standout match that you've seen at the Amex? Is the one go-to that you like talking about?
Jeez, that's a very good question. You said we've got an hour and a half, and I think that's for this question. Can I pick one? So on my podcast, we've got a guy called Dagan who's from the United States of America, and whenever we do our player of the match performance ratings at the end, he always gives a podium for his top three. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give a podium for my top three games at the Amex. In third place, I will probably go for the Manchester United game a couple of seasons ago when we were pushing for Europe. We scored a 99th minute penalty 2 weeks after we lost to Man United at Wembley in the FA Cup. It felt poetic justice that it would be a penalty to win it for us in the 99th minute. And that was so important for us to get Europa League. The scenes in the Amex were unlike anything other than the two games I'm about to mention. The next one for me would be the Southampton game where we won 3-1 to clinch European football for the first time. It was a really cagey atmosphere. We were getting really frustrated because we were playing a pretty much relegated Southampton side. We were thinking it's going to be an easy win. Never the case with Brighton. It's never easy. And we were 2-0 up at half-time, cruising, brilliant. James Ward-Prowse then scores, I think, directly from a corner, which was really frustrating. And then a couple of minutes after that, the second half began. Theo Walcott went through and scored to make it 2-2. And it was offside by, I'm not kidding, a blade of grass. So I am so thankful to VAR, and I'm always quite sort of reserved on criticism for VAR because it gave us that moment. And then Pascal Gross went on to score the third, which sort of clinched it for us. And it was so nice that it was Pascal to score that goal for us. Top for me would be our last group game in the Europa League against Marseille. We had to win to top the group, and João Pedro scored in the 89th minute. And I think that is easily the heaviest I've ever celebrated a goal. My chest was pounding. My head was pounding the day after. My throat was non-existent. And it was just such an incredible moment because for me, that meant the absolute world that our football club would top the Europa League. And it was dubbed at the time as the Group of Death. And we topped it. Yeah, it was such an incredible moment. And then it ended in such a sour way against Roma, and they absolutely battered us. But I've got that moment that João Pedro scored right in front of me. And then the scenes that followed after were just unbelievable. And I don't think we will ever top that ever again, unless we get to the Champions League, of course. or win the Premier League. So yeah, that's my little podium there.
It's some fantastic games, and there's always time. There's always time for another one to join and to compete with. That's what we love.
There's been a lot this season. I think we had one against West Ham where we scored in the 96th minute. Baleba scored from like 35 yards, and we were going, "Don't shoot, and it ends up in the back of the net. We scored a 96th minute penalty against Fulham last season as well, a 98th minute winner against United. So we've had some. I think we're quite spoilt really for last minute drama at the Annex, and I wouldn't like it to be that way all the time because you want to win a game comfortably and enjoy it. But those moments, like I think I was listening to a podcast the other day, and one of the questions was, if you could bottle any feeling, what would it be? And I think for me, scoring a 99th minute winner or something along those lines, that's the feeling I would bottle. You can't explain it. That euphoria of just grabbing everybody around you and knowing that you've won the game there and then. Yeah, it's nothing like it.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's a mix of it's relief as well as the euphoria. I think those two things kind of together. I think, and I think I've having experienced myself quite a few last minute ones, and even a couple that have come like one after the other. That's just the most insane feeling to say. If you're ever trying to get somebody into football, that's what you want to show them. That's for sure, because you can't beat it. But of course, it's been an interesting Premier League season that we've had this year. It's kind of been a bit strange in a number of ways. One of which, we've had teams competing that haven't competed in the past and have kind of over-excelled to a point of what was expected. We've had teams been absolutely shocking towards the other end of the table that you wouldn't expect. But of course, how do you sort of summarise it for yourself? You've got teams like Bournemouth and Brentford have sort of been in there battling with yourselves for Europe. And what's been the real strength of Brighton this season to put you in the fight?
Yeah, it's definitely been the battle of the teams beginning with B in that sort of area. They just don't seem to fall away until right at the last minute. We've had a couple of those moments over the last few seasons where Brentford have sort of been breathing down our necks, and there's a quite funny story with Brentford. I think the owner of Brentford and Tony Bloom are rivals in terms of business. Tony Bloom never gets a seat in the director's box for the Brentford away game. So he has to go in with the away fans, which is always quite a funny thing to see. So it's always nice to get one up on them. But as you say, this season has been so weird, and obviously seeing Man United and Spurs down there, I think Spurs have been unbelievably lucky that the three teams that came up were absolutely awful. Because I think if they had that pressure from below, they would have dropped more points than what they did. And probably would have got relegated with a state-of-the-art stadium, winning the Europa League, and it would have been the weirdest football situation in the world. United are the funniest joke of world football, and seeing their little circus stadium that they've got coming along is quite amusing. None of you are United fans, are you? Oh, no. I'm so sorry, Sam.
I'm at the point where I'm numb, so don't worry. You're free to go.
And I'm like, that 99th minute against United was so good. Sorry.
I was fortunately that I can tell you that 99th minute against it. I was on holiday. I just landed, and fortunately I was sat by the pool, and I was like, last minute, what's going to happen? I was like, we're going to concede. You can feel it sometimes. I wasn't even watching, and I checked the phone, and I just went, right, all-inclusive bar over there. We'll put that away.
It is payback for the lockdown game where Manchester United scored against Brighton after the full-time whistle.
There was that the Bruno Fernandes penalty. Yes.
Again, I'm not bitter. What was the question? Sorry.
I've forgotten where were we. I suppose this season for Brighton. What's the strength of it been for this Brighton this season? What's been your main strength?
I think the adaptability of Fabien Herzeler has been our main strength. I think there's been moments this season, again after the 7-0 loss against Forest, where you think if he doesn't change something and change it fast, we're going to drop down the league very quickly. And rumour has it the next day he got the training plan, took it in front of the players and burnt it in front of them and said, we're not doing that ever again. And sure enough, we didn't see it ever again. So, it's been, as I say, the pressure from below. Fulham were there. We were having to really pick up points to keep pace with the teams above us as well. So I think that's been our main strength is really pushing on when things have got tough. And again, bodes well for next season. If we can do that again. Yankuba Minter said to media in his country that we need a team of fighters. We don't need any of these sort of prima donnas, João Pedros to be pulling the team backwards. We want to be fighting and as Fabien Herzeler says, challenging the establishment again. So I think we can do that. As I said earlier in the show, there's a lot of teams playing in Europe. So if we can take what we've learned this season into next, I think we'll do quite well.
And just a general question on the Premier League. Do you think it's becoming more unpredictable again? You know, we've had years of kind of predictability, but it does seem a bit more unpredictable last 12 months.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think there's just so many teams that are doing well and getting players come through that, we talk about Bournemouth, Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, lots of other players at that club that have done so well. Hoyson, who's obviously moved on. Kirkes, who is probably going to move. I don't know if he's actually gone to Liverpool yet. But I think a lot of teams are doing really smart business and trying to push themselves up to challenge because the opportunity is there, and a lot of clubs are sort of seeing that opportunity and taking or making the most of it. So I think that does put a lot of pressure on the likes of Arsenal and Man City, who are slightly, City, you always expect to bounce back after a terrible season. I think they'll probably be all right next year. They've made some good signings, but if we keep that pressure on them from below, then the unpredictability of the Premier League could continue. Obviously, Liverpool ran away with it, but other than that, I think any team could beat anyone except for the bottom three, probably. Long may that continue because it just makes such better watching, knowing that every week you're going to see a shock result or you're going to see a Nottingham Forest challenging for Champions League football all the way through, and then slightly falling away. So, yeah, it's nice to see, and the opportunity is there for clubs like Brighton, like Brentford, like Bournemouth to push on for European football.
A standout name that we mention near enough every week on the podcast is Matoma, and I feel as though he is an incredibly talented player and has done such an incredible job with Brighton. How important is he for you?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Obviously, I spoke about Pascal Gross as being, in my opinion, our best ever. So I think he goes on a pedestal above all. So that allows me to talk about Mitoma in the way that I want to. So he is, as I say, one of the greatest we've ever seen and probably will ever see at this club. A lot of people spoke about the fact that he was at university. He did a degree on dribbling. He attached a camera to himself for his thesis, and all of that. And you see the proof of that when he plays football. And he's not got blistering pace. He works hard. He defends. He finds himself in positions and takes players on. The goal against Chelsea this year, where he took it out of the air and scores within a couple of touches, that summed up exactly what Karim Matoma can do. And there was a moment against Liverpool at the end of last season where he just took the ball out of the air and the whole of the Amex probably cheered as loud as a goal. We thought it was going out of play. He created a chance from plucking the ball probably 5 foot out of the air from nothing. And obviously spoke about Anthony Knockaert getting you off the seat. Mitoma, even when he's on the bench ready to warm up, you're off your seat because you know something good is going to happen when he comes on the pitch. I think he's been sort of annoyed by injuries this season. On the back of last season, he suffered a back injury, and I think that's carried through to this year. So again, if we're not seeing Karim Matoma at his best and he's still producing what he's producing, if he can get that injury behind him and get the form back, and we can keep him, he's going to be formidable again. I think physically as well, he's got time on his side. He's sort of 28, 29 now, but he didn't start playing professional football until he was 24. So he probably hasn't had that much of a physical demand on him. So probably would extend his career maybe by a couple of years. That's why I probably think he's probably looking now to move to a team that play in the Champions League. And for me, if he did move on, it would be with every single one of my well wishes. He deserves the very best because he is one of the most iconic players that I've seen over my time as being a Brighton fan, and maybe even in the Premier League over the last few years. Everyone talks about Mitoma in their sort of ones to watch player of the seasons, even when he's had not a very good season. His impact on the footballing world and the Premier League has been incredible. He's the top Japanese goal scorer in the Premier League as well. So, I think he will probably go down definitely as a Brighton legend and looked at as one of the Premier League icons.
Yeah, he's an exceptional player, and so you can always tell when kind of across the teams everyone has that kind of same opinion of such a fantastic player. You mentioned about certain numbers of the great recruitment going on, that you've got numbers of wingers and things on loan. Who's the one young player that you think is the one that we should be keeping an eye on that could break through?
Oh gosh, that is a very good question. We've got so many. I think I'll talk about a couple. First of all, I'll talk about James Beadle, who's currently at the England under-21s Euros campaign with England. He has been excellent in his loan moves, and I think has a very high ceiling as a goalkeeper. We're not short of goalkeepers and young goalkeepers, so maybe he might suffer with finding his way through his route to the first team. But I think if he has another good loan move this year, that he could be a player that we bring in, especially if Bart Verbruggen moves on in a year's time. He's obviously a very good young goalkeeper himself, so I think he's been scouted by Barcelona, Bayern, etc. So we're in a good spot there. Jack Hinshelwood. You guys have probably seen him a lot this season. He scored a lot of important goals. Scored his first brace for the club against Spurs in the final day. He was playing as a number 10/striker when he's normally a centre midfielder or a right back. So he's that versatile that he's probably our Pascal Gross replacement. Pascal was that for us. He was everywhere on the pitch. I think he played every single outfield position for us, Pascal Gross. So it's a shame that he didn't come on for 10 minutes as a goalkeeper. But yeah, Jack Hinshelwood is a homegrown talent. The first academy product that's come through every single age group at Brighton into the first team. So it's a huge sort of accolade for our academy that opened 10 years ago. But I think the one I really want to highlight is somebody you mentioned earlier, is Diego Gomez. He's played 18 months worth of football. His season didn't finish in the MLS. Well, sorry, his season finished in the MLS, and then he came to Brighton and played 6 months more. So I think he deserves a break. But next season, I think we're going to see a really good player. He's shown flashes of brilliance. His goal against Spurs was one of the most unbelievable goals I've seen. And I'm an admirer of Inter Miami. I'm a bit of a Messi fanboy, so apologies. So I was watching him there, and I was like, I would love him at Brighton. And then we signed him, so lovely. So yeah, it was. I'm a huge advocate for him, and I want him to do well. So yeah, Diego Gomez. Remember the name.
Remember the name. There we go. So I'm sure many others will be coming through, as they always do, from Brighton as well. Closing out for. Closing out for this season, so where did you think that it just fell short? Of course, not the smallest of margins, effectively, but where was that slight difference, and what needs to change next season to make it different?
I think what needs to change has already been changed, as I said, about the game management and seeing games out when things get tough, and having fighters, people that don't hide in difficult moments. So I think we're covered there, but where we've fallen short is against the teams in the bottom three at home, Wolves at home, Leicester at home. Had we have converted all of those points in the way that we wanted to, I think we would have been third, which is just mind-boggling. So they're the fine margins that you talk about in terms of where Brighton are in the Premier League and where a lot of teams are. And I think a lot of teams will say the same thing. Had we have converted this draw to a win, it would have been, stating the obvious, it would have been more points had we have scored this goal. So, you hope that we can convert that, but football isn't that simple. And as I said, with Brighton, it's never done the easy way. Even though there's always opportunity for us to do it the easy way. But I think that's what we love as fans. We want to be kept on our toes. We want to be excited. We want to have the thought of dread. We want, and then we want to have that moment of joy. And I think that's what makes football so beautiful. So, that's where we need to improve. And as I say, the lessons Fabien's learned towards the end of the season, I think we'll do quite well.
The transfer window will be opening again soon, because this season they've decided let's do it different and pause it halfway through. But which positions are key to strengthen for you at Brighton, and are there any particular names that you would like to see come into the side?
Yeah, I think we've always struggled for a right back, really. Joel Veltman is the player that plays right back or centre back, but has been sort of plagued by injury a lot this season. Tarek Lamptey, when he plays for us, is excellent, but he's spent more time than not on the treatment table. Kadioglu is probably going to come back in, but will likely play left back because Estupiñán is likely to leave. So I think we need a right back that's going to come in, and that means that Jack Hinshelwood can then play in his natural position as a centre midfielder. We've already got in two more centre backs, which was the area that I really wanted us to strengthen. We've got Olivier Buscagli and I can't remember the other guy, Coppola, I think his name is, from Italy. As I said, look like the sort of profile that Fabien Herzeler wants from the centre backs. Will be challenging, obviously, Lewis Dunk, Van Hacker for his place. Adam Webster as well, who was absolutely incredible for us at the end of the season. A lot of Brighton fans were writing him off, saying he needs to move on. And his redemption arc was probably the most incredible thing I've seen at the Albion. So it's props to him for staying so professional. But other than that, I think we're pretty well stocked in other areas. We've got a lot of number 10s, a lot of wingers out on loan that can come in. João Pedro, as I say, likely to move on. But we've then had Costulas come in. We've got Simas coming back from his loan. We've got Brian Gruder, who, as I say, was absolutely electric at the end of last season. So the areas that I really wanted us to strengthen, I think we're already looking to do that. So I'm already quite a content Brighton fan on the 16th of June, which is just crazy. So yeah, Tony Bloom, put your checkbook away. Joe's happy.
He's happy the job is done. Put the phone down, don't listen to any offers for anybody, and just crack on with next season.
If you could lock Carlos Baleba up somewhere until the season starts or the transfer window ends, that'd be great.
That'll be the stuff. This is it, and I'm sure anybody that comes in will be, as Brighton have proved in the past, will be an exciting addition, no doubt about it. So with the way we like to sort of conclude, of course, is we have our fantastic absolutely or absolutely not game, which we haven't played in a long time because I've done one of these in a little long time. So I've had to find the old video, Rebecca, the old introduction for the video. So I'll have it here. We'll roll the VT and then we'll explain the game.
The question with only two answers. Absolutely or absolutely not.
Absolutely.
No. Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not, mate.
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
There we go. World class productions. Without a doubt. Wow, we haven't done that in a while. I don't. Shah and I did that. I think under the cover of darkness one evening when we first started. It was like, you know what? We're just gonna stick with it. We're just gonna stick with it. It has had to have a music change, but we've maintained the video. So the absolutely or absolutely not game. It's very basic. It's very simple. We've got 6 players coming up for you, Joe, and you're now in charge. You're now the recruitment. Having learned about how the brilliance of recruitment, you have to decide whether they stay or they go. It's absolutely keep them or absolutely not get rid of them. Now, I will warn you when we get to number 6. I did do this a couple of weeks ago. Number 6 has signed a new contract recently, so just pretend that hasn't happened. And you can make your decision. So we'll start off with the first one. You mentioned him, of course. Lots of rumours, lots of issues going on. João Pedro, absolutely or absolutely not?
I'm going to shock people and say absolutely not. I think he's a bad egg.
Absolutely not. Bad egg. Off he goes. Do you think he'll go to Newcastle? Seems to be the name.
Yeah, they were interested in him. I think before we signed him, Fabien Herzeler, Fabrizio Romano. In fact, here we go, João Pedro to Newcastle, and then it didn't happen. So weirdly, I think João Pedro will find his way to Newcastle eventually, and you'll probably see Romano retweet his tweet from 3 years ago.
This is it, just to maintain his 100% record eventually. Next up, we have come back from loan, Jeremy Sarmiento.
Oh, the phrasing is so brutal, isn't it?
It is.
I don't. Absolutely not. But Jeremy, if you're watching, it's not absolutely. It's a heart-wrenching not. Because I think he's a great guy. I think he's a fantastic player. But I think his time has come now to find his new challenge. Just because of the plethora of attacking talent we have at the club, I don't think he'll find his way through. So. Unfortunately, Mr. Sarmiento, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. On his way, sadly. Next up, you mentioned him, the redemption arc, Adam Webster.
Oh, gosh. If you asked me this 4 months ago, I would say absolutely not. But now I am 100% abso-bloody-lutely. Get him on the back of my shirt straight away. What a legend. That's how fickle football fans can be, right? Yeah, absolutely for Adam Webster.
I think they become more, if you have somebody that's like that and then suddenly, they turn and the love for them is just doubly as strong as kind of the frustrations with him. I think you forget all the bad and just go, I love him and I'm all in. That's just where I'm at.
We won't pretend that he didn't pass it to somebody to then go for a goal once. But yeah, what a guy.
What a guy. Next up, Facundo Buonanotte, of course, with Leicester this season. Relegated, difficult, but coming back.
That's really difficult. I'm thinking for Fabien Herzeler, there was a stat at the end of last season, players who cover the most ground when they're not on the ball. So sort of actions against the ball. And Fabien Herzeler seems to love that. He seems to love the work rate. And Facundo was hitting the numbers of being in the top 5 of those players in the Premier League in a struggling Leicester side as well. So I think I'm going to say absolutely.
Absolutely. There you go. A returnee on the way. And then we have a guy struggling with injury. He's been a tough few seasons for Solly March. Where do you stand with him?
Yeah, it's somebody that I have not spoken about once on this podcast, which is an absolute disgrace from me. Solly March, again, a Brighton legend, has come through our academy. He snaked Crystal Palace to sign for the Albion when he was young. So that always gave him brownie points. I think a lot of people maybe think that Brighton fans don't like Solly March because he missed a couple of penalties. But that's absolutely not the case. We all sort of theoretically put our arms around him and championed him to come back. He's had a really tough time with 2 ACL injuries in the last 5 years. And he's come back both times. And a lot of fans were saying Solly March is going to be a player that is going to end his career early. He came back and scored in the FA Cup against Norwich earlier this year, and was such a beautiful return. Seeing him back at the Amex coming on in the Premier League was such an emotional moment. So absolutely.
Absolutely, he's going to retain. And of course, coming up, we have a man who's signed a new contract, but we all know he's going to play football forever because he's been around forever and he will be around forever. The one and only James Millie Milner. Absolutely or absolutely not.
Absolutely. Get him on an 80-year contract. We'll have a 120-year-old James Milner playing for the Albion when I'm long gone. Absolutely for me. I think he's such a model professional for a lot of the young guys that we've got coming through. I really, really want him to stay healthy next year and get to that all-time Premier League appearances figure. Because that would be so nice that Brighton and Hove Albion are in a quiz, sort of a quiz answer across the world. James Milner, absolutely.
I think he's got a good shot as well. Is it Gareth Barry? It's something like 652, and he's on 6. I think it's only like 15 or 20 appearances next.
So just sub him on in the last minute, Fabien.
It's got last day of next season written all over it, isn't it? For just to get across it. And there we go. We've sorted out the transfer window. There's nothing for Brighton to do, as you said. It's all sorted.
Yeah, if you could send that across to Tony Bloom, perfect.
The job is done. And thank you so much. It's been wonderful to talk everything about Brighton. We've had a fantastic time, and hopefully you guys, as the viewers of our show, and so if you're new to the Absolute Football Podcast as well, you've enjoyed this chat as well. And thank you to Rebecca, because Rebecca, well done. You absolutely smashed your first interview. How's it feel being on this side of the table rather than me asking you questions about why Everton have got another points deduction?
It's nice to just ask the questions, and it's really nice to learn more about Brighton because quite a few of the stories that you've told me I've never heard before. So it's been really good to be able to talk everything Brighton and learn more about such an incredible team in the Premier League.
I've got a question, Rebecca, actually. Everton stadium name. Why? Why? It's such a terrible name.
We'll stick with Bramley Moor.
Yeah.
I don't use that name. No.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I like it.
It's a safe bet. It is a safe bet, I think. But thank you so much, Joe, for coming. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening and just going through everything Brighton. Of course, so if you haven't checked out the Albion Obsessed Podcast, do go and find it. Where, Joe, can everybody find you and the podcast and check you out?
You can find us, just by searching the Albion. Where is it? There it is. The Albion Obsessed Podcast. I spoke about the Withdean Stadium earlier on. We actually a couple of years ago, I think last year, did a documentary on the Withdean Stadium. We were luckily granted access all areas at our old hallowed turf, and we took Aaron and Tom, who were season ticket holders at the Withdean, took them back there so they could experience that hallowed turf for one last time. It was such an awesome experience. We have interviewed Charlie Oatway, who was a player in that time, and we interviewed none other than Fatboy Slim, who was our shirt sponsor, Skint, which was very apt because at the time Brighton were absolutely skint. So yeah, go and check that out. It was one of our sort of prize pieces of content. And if you want to hear people moan about Brighton 24/7, then come over to Albion Obsessed. You won't go far wrong.
That's it. Got to have a rant. Even when things are going well, everyone's got to have a rant. So do check it out.
As I say, got to moan about the fact they've got no vegan milk on the concourse.
You've got to get it all in there. So do check it all out. Check out Joe as well. And again, thank you very much for joining us. And of course, we are as well. If you're new to us, if you haven't seen us before, we are the Absolute Football Podcast. We did win Best New Content Creator at the Football Content Awards, didn't we, Rebecca? It was something crazy and amazing. So we're very proud of that. And we now do 4 shows a week. If it's not just Premier League, which I think there's plenty of other stuff. But on Mondays, it's the absolutely non-league show with Charlotte and the team, who are talking National League North and South, the FA Trophy. Sometimes they go even further down the pyramid as well. There's lots of stories going on there. Our kind of brand new show on a Monday. On a Tuesday, we do the absolutely Premier League show, which of course is covering the Premier League, funnily enough. And we do go around Europe, of course, with Rebecca's Scottish Roundup that we won't forget. We have a Dundee section every week just to find out what's going on further up north. On Wednesday, it's our absolutely women's football show with Freya and the team, WSL and Women's Championship, which is now the WSL 2, which is a pain because that means I've got to change all the branding this summer. So thank you very much to the Women's Super League. But they do have Euro 2025 coming up with the Lionesses. So lots of watch-alongs and stuff and recaps coming on with those guys. On Thursday, it's Shart and the Rowdy Rabble, where you may see Rebecca. You might see me sometimes as well. The lower league show, talking everything EFL Championship, League One and League Two. We are still continuing during the summer. Just a few more. There's lives and records. There's stuff going on. Check us out on Twitter mostly, where we'll be keeping you apprised of what we're up to. That is at Absolute Ball Pod. On YouTube and Twitch at Absolute Football Podcast. Do drop us a like and subscribe if you enjoyed as well, so you don't miss our content. Wonderful stuff. And on TikTok, Absolute Football Pod. Instagram, Absolute Football Podcast _. We're on Blue Sky. I must remember we're still on there because I don't think I've posted anything on the info ever, but we are Absolute Football if you find us there. And the same on Facebook, the Absolute Football Podcast. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8:30 is the time. And sometimes some other days as well if we find some stuff to do. We've got a team and they all like talking football, so there's plenty of content to get through. But thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great one, and we will catch you on the next one. Ciao for now. Hang on, let me get rid of the outro. I'll cut that bit there. There we go. As it cut through, just checking it's all gone through.